Welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today, we are going to discuss the important issues appearing in the Hindu newspaper dated 14th August 2018. Let's begin. The first news appears on page number 1 as a snippet and also primarily on page number 7. It talks about Ease of Living Index. It says Pune tops Ease of Living Index and Patna ranked lowest of the 111 cities which were ranked for the Ease of Living Index. So in this news, let us understand about this Ease of Living Index, which is an initiative of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. So in this news, we read that the three cities of Maharashtra, namely Pune, Navi Mumbai, as well as Greater Mumbai, have topped this particular rankings of Ease of Living Index, whereas New Delhi has been ranked at 65 among 111 cities which participated in the ranking. And in this ranking, Kolkata did not participate in the survey. So in this news analysis, let us understand certain important facts about Ease of Living Index. As far as the syllabus is concerned, it forms a part of GS paper 1, specifically under issues relating to urbanization, their problems and their remedies. As you can see, a similar question was asked in the year 2016 in GS paper 1. The question read, with a brief background of quality of urban life in India, introduce the objectives and strategy of the Smart City program. So we understand that the issue of urban governance has always been in news and has also been asked by UPSC. So let's understand this entire concept of Ease of Living Index from the context of urban governance. So as we have seen, this Ease of Living Index is an initiative of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. And this ranking of Ease of Living Index helps cities to assess their livability, both on global parameters as well as on national benchmarks. Now this survey of Ease of Living Index comprises of 4 pillars, primarily institutional, social, economic as well as physical. And this parameter, that is 4 pillars, is further split into 15 categories for the ranking purpose of cities on various accounts. The 15 categories are governance, identity and culture, education, health, security and safety, economy and employment, wastewater management, reduced pollution, mixed land use and compactness, transport and mobility, assured water supply, power supply, housing and inclusiveness, solid waste management, as well as public open spaces. So these are the various aspects which this particular ranking, that is Ease of Living Index, has taken into consideration. And in this respect, it's important to know that the evaluation of cities has been done on a 100-point scale, on which the pillar of institutional has been given 25 points, social 25 points, economy 5 points, and physical 45 points. So this is the categorization of evaluation of cities done on various pillars, in which institutional has been provided 25 points, social provided 25, economy 5, and physical 45. And in this respect, a data entry portal and a monitoring dashboard was provided for a real-time update on the progress to measure the different indices of various cities in India. It is important to know in this aspect that this Ease of Living Assessment Standard is closely linked to the SDG goals, that is Sustainable Development Goals. And in this respect, this Ease of Living Assessment Standard or Ease of Living Index will provide a strong impetus to India's effort for systematic tracking progress of these SDG goals, that is Sustainable Development Goals in the urban areas in the country. So this Ease of Living Index will further help in achieving the goals of sustainable development in the urban areas. You can see the various sustainable development goals, primarily which are no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industrial innovation and infrastructure, reduce inequalities, sustainable cities and communities. And it is here where the Ease of Living Index will help in achieving this particular target. Further, responsibilities, consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice and strong institutions, as well as partnership for the goals. So this Ease of Living Index of cities will further help in achieving these various sustainable development goals. So apart from these pillars and categories, The national rankings of 111 cities will also be done across on the categories of geographical zone and population classification. So these rankings will be done across mainly the four pillars we just saw, categories, the 15 categories which we also saw, geographical zone, as well as population classification. So we see this news on ease of living index becomes very important from a exam point of view, as a question on urban governance has already been asked in GS paper 1. This initiative of smart city program is also that of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and its objective is to promote sustainable and inclusive city and also provide core infrastructure to the cities which provide a decent quality of life to its inhabitants. You can read about the Smart Cities program on the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, where various points with respect to the Smart City program has been categorized on the website of the government, that is of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Now this topic of ease of living index becomes important from both providing quality of life as well as competitive governance among cities. So a question based on these two concepts may be asked in your examination. So the question says, the rankings on ease of living index will help in improving quality of life in urban India and also provide an impetus on competitive governance among cities. Analyze. So I'm sure after going through this particular discussion, you'll be able to answer such kind of questions. So we see this news on ease of living index becomes very important from our exam point of view. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appears on page number 7. The news reads, Disclose panels on sexual harassment, companies told, rules amended by Corporate Affairs Ministry. Now in this news, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has amended certain rules to provide instances of sexual harassment at workplaces in private places or even in private institutions. So in order to ensure better implementation of law against such cases of sexual harassment at workplace, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has amended the Companies Accounts Rules under the Companies Act 2013. And this amendment has mandated disclosure of sexual harassment at workplace, even in private institution. So such issues of social harassment after the amendment to the rules must be a part of report of the Board of Directors. So this mandatory requirement of making it a part of Board of Directors official report gives impetus to the disclosure of such cases of sexual harassment, if any, has taken place at such workplace. So as per the new clause, the board's report will have to contain a statement that the company has complied with the provisions relating to constitution of an internal complaints committee, and this internal complaints committee must be constituted as per the provisions of Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013. And it's important to know that this particular act was enacted after the guidelines and norms laid down by the Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Vishakha and others versus State of Rajasthan. And these guidelines have also been commonly termed as Vishakha Guidelines on Sexual Harassment at Workplace. In this respect, it's important to note that the Minister of Women and Child Development has said that she will request the SEBI, that is Securities and Exchange Board of India, to incorporate this disclosure report on sexual harassment at workplace in reports on corporate governance, as it will ensure implementation of the new amendment rule, as well as it will increase responsibilities on the board of directors, especially with related to cases of sexual harassment at workplace. And it will also help in making the place a safer place for women to work. In this respect, it's important to know about Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013, that it provides for an internal complaints committee for such institutions which has 10 or more employees. Further, it also provides for a local complaints committee. Now this particular act provides for protection against sexual harassment of women at workplace and for the prevention and redressal of complaints of such cases of sexual harassment. It says that sexual harassment results in violation of fundamental rights of a woman, specifically under Article 14, 15, as well as with respect to her right to life and live with dignity under Article 21. So in this aspect, all these articles with respect to dignity of a woman becomes extremely important. It further says that right to practice any profession or to carry on any occupation, trade or business which includes a right to safe environment free from sexual harassment. So all these has been clubbed under Article 21. So in this respect, this act on prevention of sexual harassment of women at workplace becomes extremely important. And it says that this act has been enacted with respect to certain international conventions and instruments which has been ratified by India, such as Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which has been ratified on 25th June 1993. So, with respect to this international covenant, as well as with respect to the Vishakha guidelines, this particular act becomes extremely important for us to understand from a UPSC point of view. It further provides for instances of sexual harassment, where it says that sexual harassment may amount to if implied or explicit promise of preferential treatment in her employment, or implied or explicit threat of detrimental treatment in her employment, or implied or explicit threat about her present or future employment status, or interference with her work, or creating an intimidating or offensive or hostile work environment for her, or humiliating treatment likely to affect her health or safety. So all these should be prevented at such places, and if any of such acts takes place, then it amounts to instance of sexual harassment. Further, this act also talks about creation of a local complaints committee. It says that every district officer shall constitute in the district concerned a committee to be known as the local complaints committee to receive complaints of sexual harassment from establishments where this internal complaints committee has not been constituted due to having less than 10 workers, or if the complaint is against the employer himself. So in such cases where such internal complaints committee has not been constituted, then in such place the district officer, that is either the district magistrate or the additional district magistrate, can constitute a local complaints committee. And in this regard, the district officer shall designate one nodal officer in every block, taluk and tehsil in rural or tribal area, or ward or municipality in the urban area, to receive complaints and forward the same to the concerned local complaints committee. So this act provides for complete prevention, prohibition and redressal of, in order to prevent cases of sexual harassment of women at workplace. As far as the syllabus is concerned, this topic forms a part of GS paper 2, specifically under welfare schemes for vulnerable sections of the population by the center and states, and performance of these schemes, mechanisms, laws, institutions and bodies constituted for the protection and betterment of these vulnerable sections. So this news on making disclosure of such cases of sexual harassment mandatory at workplace, including private institutions, becomes extremely important from our exam perspective. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next article appears on page number 8 as a lead article. It reads, "Growth may pick up but concerns remain. India may well clock the highest growth rate globally, but more is needed to create jobs." So this article also deals with the concept of jobless growth in the Indian economy. Jobless growth economy refers to a condition where the unemployment remains high despite high economic growth. So it's a sort of a paradoxical situation where the economy of a country is growing, but despite the fact of a growing economy, the employment in that particular country is comparatively less, or there are problems with relating to employment in a growing economy. Now, questions on jobless growth as well as economy has been asked previously in the UPSC mains examination under GS paper 3. As you can read, the question asked in the year 2017 was, among several factors for India's potential growth, savings rate is the most effective one. Do you agree? What are the other factors available for growth potential? A question asked in 2015 was, the nature of economic growth in India in recent times is often described as jobless growth. Do you agree with this view? Give arguments in favor of your answer. Further, another question was asked in the year 2014. It read, normally countries shift from agriculture to industry and later to services, but India shifted directly from agriculture to the service sector. What are the reasons for the huge growth of services vis-a-vis industry in the country? Can India become a developed country without a strong industrial base? So we see all these different kind of questions have been asked by UPSC with respect to growth and development of India. So let's find out what are the concerns which still remains with our growing economy. In this aspect, the focus of the article is that India has become the sixth largest economy in the world with a total economic size of $2.6 trillion. Further, India is also the fastest growing major economy in 2018 with a growth rate of 7.4%. So in terms of growth, we are comparatively better as compared to other countries. However, the bigger size of the economy and faster growth has not translated into the desired outcomes. It means that this growth does not reflect its true potential. And in this aspect, this article highlights that the present economic growth of India is far below its potential. And this potential is specifically with respect to this jobless growth, one which has been unable to pull people out of poverty. So it's sort of a paradoxical situation that on one hand we are saying that the economy of our country is growing tremendously. On the other hand, and this growing economy is unable to pull people out of poverty. Or in other words, this growing economy is not able to provide commensurate job to people. So it is in this aspect that this article discusses about various sectors of the Indian economy, what are the prospects, their concerns, and how these various sectors has the potential to not only grow considerably but also to provide adequate means of livelihood or jobs to people of India. So in this article, first of all is mentions about agriculture. So under agriculture, this article says that this year the monsoon rainfall was below expectation and there were overall deficiency of 3%. In this aspect, 11 out of 36 divisions in India received less rainfall, and this has also impacted the net sown area. So we see that less rainfall is directly impacting the net sown area in a particular region. However, it is expected that the monsoon may pick up and the agricultural growth may be around 3.4%, which is same as last year. So despite less rainfall, it is still expected that the monsoon may pick up and this will further improve our agricultural growth. The concerns are the present growth rate is far below the targeted growth rate of 4% in the agriculture sector, and with such a lower growth rate, it would be extremely difficult to achieve government's vision of doubling the farmer income by 2022. As far as the manufacturing is concerned, it says that growth in industrial activities has picked up to a 5-month high of 7% in June 2018 as highlighted by the IIP, that is Index of Industrial Production. It further says the stimulus provided by the government and a pickup in private investment has led to the industrial growth. So it says that a stimulus provided by the government and a pickup in private investment has led to better industrial activity. The initial challenges faced by the industries due to implementation of GST may have been finally addressed. Hence, in this aspect, one can expect pickup in the growth rate in the manufacturing sector. So in this article, the author expects the growth rate to pick up in the manufacturing sector. However, the concerns expressed by the author are that manufacturing sector contributes only around 17% of India's GDP, which is far lower as compared to the other countries. And in this aspect, this sector is most crucial for Indian economy since this sector has the capability to take advantage of India's demographic dividend as well as to create employment opportunities in manufacturing sector. So this manufacturing sector is extremely important with respect to our job prospects. Further, the article talks about the services sector. It says that the service sector is the key driver of India's economic growth, and this sector is estimated to contribute around 54% of India's gross value added in 2017-18. Now a question by UPSC has already been asked saying that we have moved directly from the agricultural economy to a service sector economy. So in this aspect, this growth of service sector becomes extremely important also to understand from a UPSC perspective. It says that with increase in public investment, the sector would continue the growth momentum and will also help in providing job opportunities to people of India. However, the concerns expressed are that the future growth of service sector would largely depend on continued availability of highly skilled personnel, and India needs to make adequate investment in the research and development field to take the lead in emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence. So in the coming days, use of artificial intelligence and data management becomes extremely critical, and in this aspect, skill enhancement becomes necessary to find more job opportunities in the field of artificial intelligence. The author then highlights the domestic as well as international concerns related to the Indian economy. Under domestic concerns, the author says that the growing NPAs of Indian banks has become a problem, including the twin balance sheet issue. Twin balance sheet issue basically refers to the twin problems of stressed assets. One, that of banks, and the other, that of corporates who take loans from such banks. The problem is with respect to the NPAs or non performing assets on the loans taken by these corporates. So, when corporates are unable to pay back the interest to banks, it not only increases stress on banks' accounts but also increases stress on the balance sheet of corporates. So, it is sometimes referred as twins balance sheet problem. So, here it says, as per RBI's financial stability report, the NPAs of the banks have risen to 11.6%, and this increase in NPA has led to this twin balance sheet problem, which in turn has hurt credit growth and investment. Obviously, if the corporates are not able to provide back interest, then the banks will not provide further loans. And second point referred by the author is the fiscal position of the government. It says the government may be able to maintain the fiscal deficit within the targeted 3.3% for the year. However, it faces two main concerns with respect to maintaining this fiscal deficit. First, GST revenues have been lower than expectation, and second, impact of an increase of MSP which the government recently announced to 1.5 times the production cost. So both these aspects taken together may impact the fiscal deficit numbers of the government. And lastly, the author has highlighted this international concerns. So under international concerns, the author has highlighted the issues of trade war as well as increase in crude oil prices and also instability in the world financial relations. So all these somewhere is also impacting India, as increase in crude oil prices leads to a higher import bill which further increases the current account deficit of the country. And in this aspect, reducing of India's export is also a concern. So the author highlights that India needs to improve the competitiveness of our exports through improved efficiency in production and better infrastructure. So all the concerns expressed by the author becomes very important from Indian economic perspective. As we have seen, questions have been asked previously by UPSC, hence this topic becomes extremely important. This topic forms a part of GS paper 3 under Indian economy and issues related to planning, mobilization, resources, growth, development and employment. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appears on page number 18. The news reads, coral reefs could survive global warming, says study. Their relationship with algae has endured numerous climate change events in the past. This news is in relation with the symbiotic relation between the corals as well as the algae. So in this news, let us first understand about corals, as you can see in this particular picture. Now these corals are marine invertebrates which lives in compact colonies of many identical individual polyps. And these polyps are like a tin can which open at one end and has a mouth which is surrounded by a ring of tentacles. These tentacles have stinging cells called nematocysts that allow the coral polyp to capture small organisms. Now these shallow corals have another source of food, namely zooxanthellae. These single-celled zooxanthellae make food through photosynthesis by utilizing the sun's energy. These algae provides this energy to the corals, and in exchange these coral animals provide nutrients to the algae. This symbiotic relationship between corals and the algae helps in building enormous structure called reefs. And this zooxanthellae also provides much of the color that these reefs have. So these zooxanthellae provide colors to the coral reef. So here we understood the symbiotic relationship between the corals as well as the algae. And it is this symbiotic relationship which helps in the expansion and building of these coral reefs. And these zooxanthellae also provide color to these coral reefs. So in this particular news, it has been highlighted that these coral reefs are facing threat due to global climate change. An example is coral bleaching of the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. However, a new study has found that there may be hope for marine reefs to survive modern day global warming. So these coral reefs are facing threat from the global warming. The article then further talks about the symbiotic relation between the corals and the algae which we just understood. It says that the relationship between corals and the mutualistic microalgae that enable them to build reefs is considerably older and more diverse than previously assumed, according to a study published in one of the journal known as Current Biology. It further says that the past estimates place the initiation of the symbiotic relationship at 50 to 65 million years ago. The news further highlights that this fossil record shows that today's reef building corals exploded in diversity around 160 million years ago, and they have faced several episodes of environmental change, but so far have managed to bounce back. And this bouncing back has been possible because of the symbiotic relationship between the corals and the microalgae or the algae. As we have already seen, it says that the microalgae, commonly called zooxanthellae, lives inside the cells of corals and allows them to acquire energy from sunlight and to build a massive valuable reef formations upon which countless marine organisms rely for habitat. So they also provide marine habitat for most of the marine species. It then says this symbiotic relation has enabled them to survive these episodes of climate change. So the scientists are now studying about the symbiotic relation between these corals and the algae and how these symbiotic relations have existed for so many years and how their symbiotic relationship has helped in the growth of these coral reefs. Now this topic of coral reefs becomes interesting because previously questions have been asked by UPSC in the prelims examination. As you can see, a question was asked in 2012. The question was, the acidification of oceans is increasing. Why is this phenomena a cause of concern? The options were, the growth and survival of calcareous phytoplankton will be adversely affected. The second was, the growth and survival of coral reefs will be adversely affected. The third, the survival of some animals that have phytoplanktonic larvae will be adversely affected. And fourth, the cloud seeding and formation of clouds will be adversely affected. So in this, the options were which of the statements given above are correct. So in this, the first, second and third were correct and fourth was wrong. So the correct answer here was A. Further, a question was asked again in 2014 on coral reefs. It said, which of the following have coral reefs? Options were Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Gulf of Kutch, Gulf of Mannar and Sundarbans. So in this also they asked you to select the correct answer. So the correct answer in this was A, that is 1, 2 and 3 only. It's important to know that Sundarbans do not have coral reefs. So this information becomes extremely important for us to know that coral reefs are found around Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Gulf of Kutch and Gulf of Mannar, but not around Sundarbans. So the correct answer in this was A, that is 1, 2 and 3 only. Now another question was asked in 2014. It says the scientific view is that the increase in global temperature should not exceed 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial level. If the global temperature increases beyond 3 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial level, what can be its possible impact or impacts on the world? And the options were, terrestrial biosphere tend towards a net carbon source. Second, widespread coral mortality will occur. Third, all the global wetlands will permanently disappear. Fourth, cultivation of cereals will not be possible anywhere in the world. Now in this, third and fourth were not correct with respect to the question asked. In this, only 1 and 2 were correct. So here, B was a correct answer. So we see not only questions on coral reef but also a relationship between impact of climate change or global warming with respect to coral bleaching or its impact on coral reef has been asked previously by the UPSC. In your prelims paper, this forms a part of general issues on environment, ecology, biodiversity and climate change. So in this news, the symbiotic relation between corals and algae becomes extremely important for us to understand from our exam point of view, and also the impact of climate change on such coral reefs. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appears in the editorial section on page number 8. The news reads, Huff and ePuff. Given conflicting claims about health effects, India should treat cautiously on e-cigarettes. Now this editorial is about the impact of smoking e-cigarettes on health. So in a recent hearing on a public interest litigation in Delhi High Court, the Delhi government has said that it's planning to ban e-cigarettes. And in this respect, Karnataka as well as Maharashtra have already imposed ban on smoking e-cigarettes. So the issue is whether e-cigarettes should be banned, considering the fact that normal cigarettes is not yet banned in India and e-cigarettes is always used as an alternative for such people who are chain smokers or addictive to smoking. So in this respect, first of all, let us understand how this e-cigarette actually works. As you can see, a e-cigarette, that is electronic cigarette, is a battery operated device that emits doses of vaporized nicotine or non-nicotine solutions for user to inhale, and this aims to provide a similar sensation to inhaling tobacco smoke without the actual smoke. So the vaporized nicotine in the e-cigarette gives the smoker a sensation of inhaling actual tobacco. It further says that the liquid in the e-cigarette called e-liquid or e-juice is usually made of nicotine, propylene glycol, glycerine and flavorings. And these nicotine, propylene glycol, glycerine and flavorings at times have repercussions on health, or in other words, they have certain health impacts, as aerosolized propylene glycol as well as glycerol produce mouth and throat irritation, dry coughs. And overexposure to aerosol may also have an impact on respiratory function impairment, and at times has also been associated with certain heart attacks. So let's try and understand how this e-cigarette is different from a normal cigarette and how it impacts on our health. It says that the controversy exists between the use of e-cigarette and normal cigarette is because it is a new and rapidly evolving technology. And this new technology makes it hard for the researchers to study the health effects, as it has not been much long that people have started using this concept of e-cigarettes. So in this respect, still the evidence so far indicates that the e-cigarettes are safer than normal combustible cigarettes, because these normal combustible cigarettes also produces tar. It further says that unlike combustible cigarettes, e-cigarettes do not produce tar. However, at high temperature, e-cigarettes are carcinogenic as they produce formaldehyde, and this production of formaldehyde may produce dangerous for the health of a person. It says they also increase odds of lung disease and myocardial infarction, that is heart attack or a blocked coronary artery, but to a lesser extent than normal cigarettes do. So basically what they're trying to say that consumption of normal cigarettes which also has tar may result in a higher cases of these heart attack as compared to e-cigarettes. Further, it says technology is at a nascent stage and is developing fast. Hence, it is difficult to highlight all problems or ill effects of e-cigarettes. It's basically said that whatever research has been done so far on the impact of e-cigarettes is yet not complete, and we still require further research to effectively say that it is much more harmful than what we actually assume. Now, these e-cigarettes are primarily sold to reduce smoking habits among people or as an alternative to such people who are addictive to smoking. So in this respect, it's not very clear that what exactly are the health effects, and in this respect, even the authorities or the regulatory bodies are trying to regulate or discourage use of e-cigarettes. So we understand that more research is required on the health impact of using these e-cigarettes. So the way forward in this particular editorial can be a more pragmatic option would be to regulate e-cigarettes tightly by creating standards for the aerosols and banning underage and public use, as we remember that these aerosols were a reason for respiratory impairments. Further, this would leave smokers with a therapeutic alternative while protecting youngsters from a getaway drug. So in this respect, it will be a tough call on the policymakers to completely ban the use of e-cigarettes, especially considering the fact that the government has so far allowed use of smoking normal cigarette. As far as the syllabus is concerned, this forms a part of GS paper 2, specifically under issues relating to development and management of health and human resources. So in this editorial, it becomes important to understand that these e-cigarettes utilize this vaporized nicotine which gives a actual sensation of smoking a tobacco, and aerosolized propylene glycol and glycerol produce mouth and throat irritation, dry coughs, and also exposure to aerosols may impact the respiratory function impairment. So this editorial on e-cigarette becomes extremely important. Questions may be asked in your prelims examination as to what are the health impacts of e-cigarette and how is a e-cigarette different from a regular normal cigarette. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appears on page number 1 and also appears as a continuation on page number 10. The news reads, India rejects UK proposal on DNA test for illegal migrants. The government refuses to sign pact citing privacy issues. So in this particular news, India and United Kingdom are currently in negotiations to sign a MOU, that is Memorandum of Understanding on return of illegal immigrants to India. Under this particular memorandum of understanding between India and UK, security agencies in India were supposed to verify the antecedents of illegal migrants, and this verification has to be done within 72 days. And those people who had their documents, those verifications had to be done within 15 days. If no report was given within the time frame, that is within 72 days for those illegal migrants who did not have any documents, and within 15 days for people having documents, then in such cases the illegal migrant would be deported automatically. However, the condition of 15 days as provided by the United Kingdom was rejected by India as it was considered unworkable in India. So it was in this aspect that the authorities in the United Kingdom had suggested that nationality of such people who did not have a document or were considered illegal migrants could be established by matching their DNA samples with that of their family members. However, India rejected this suggestion, saying that it was a breach of privacy as well as the said condition was very unethical. Now, this particular news is currently in transition, and we will have to wait and see how this news moves forward with respect to illegal migrants in the United Kingdom. This topic covers under GS paper 2 under bilateral relations, specifically between India and the United Kingdom. With this, we come to an end to discussion of today's newspaper. Please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for daily DNS updates. With this, let's move on to the question for the day.